Is Spring Hill, Florida on your radar as somewhere where you might want to live? Well, if so, you're going to want to watch this video because the last thing that anybody wants to do is move to a new place and find out they've made a very expensive mistake. So what I'm going to do right now is break down everything that you need to know about Spring Hill so that you can decide whether it's the right place for you to move to or not. And be sure to stick around to the end because I'm going to break down my synopsis as a resident of Spring Hill for 15 years. Hi guys, I'm Ross Hardy from the Hardy team at Remax Marketing Specialist, and there's so many things you need to know about a new city before you move here, and people reach out to us every single day asking what's it like to be there. And so I thought I'd put all of the main points into a video so you can avoid making a huge mistake. Now, I'm not saying that moving to Spring Hill, Florida is a mistake. I've been in the area for 20 years and I think it's a great place to live. But there are certain things that people need to know, and not everybody's going to feel the same way about them. Not everybody's going to have the same opinion on whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. So all I'm here to do is break down the information, and then like I said at the end, I'm going to give you my opinion. Without further ado, let's dive right into the video. Okay, now like I've already said guys, overall, first of all, I think Spring Hill is a fantastic place to live. I lived there for 15 years before I moved to the next city over in Brooksville, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time there. I loved the communities in which I lived, and I still travel there every single day for work, and I think it's a fantastic place. But like anything else, there's good things and bad things about it. So let me give you some of the information that I think is the most important and that customers have told me is the most important over the years, so that you can decide whether it's the right place for you. Now, first of all, if you're even considering Spring Hill, Florida as a place to move to, you probably already know the general vibe of it. Spring Hill is located about 45 miles north of Tampa, Florida, and about 15 miles in from the Gulf of Mexico. It's a relatively small town. It's only about 110,000 people, although that is rapidly increasing. And it's kind of a newer town, newer city. It was primarily built up in the late 60s, early 70s is when it started to be built up. But it saw a real explosion during the 1980s. So not an old town by any stretch. Now the vibe here, if you don't know, is kind of semi-rural and pretty laid back, and that's not unexpected. You'd expect to see that from a small town or city that's about 45 minutes north of a major metro like Tampa, and also something that's relatively newly built. Now, the population here is a little bit older than some of the surrounding areas. So the median age here, according to the last census, is 43 years old, and that's about 2 or 3 years older than the Florida average and about 5 years older than the national average. So a little bit older population, but not as old as Brooksville, which is where I currently live, which is a few years higher than that. Now, because it's a slightly older population, the nightlife here is pretty tame, bordering on, I would guess, the non-existent. There are some bars that stay open late and 1 or 2 clubs, but it's certainly not going to be the place you want to be in if nightlife is important to you. Now, back in the days when I used to drink and stay up late, we used to pretty much drive down to Tampa a lot and designate a driver to do that. There are 1 or 2 bars that stay open late, and there are 1 or 2 clubs as well, but it's certainly not a mecca for nightlife, and it's not somewhere where you're going to want to be if that's an important thing to you. You're probably going to want to look closer to Tampa, like maybe Wesley Chapel or even Tampa or St. Pete itself. But all that to say, even back in the days when I used to drink and stay up late, which are long gone by the way, we used to get a designated driver and take it in turns and go down to the Tampa area. I just think there's a lot more to offer down there. And because of the Suncoast Expressway, the 589 toll road, it's an easy access to get down there as well. Yeah, I was pretty happy with the lifestyle in Spring Hill, and I was happy to sacrifice driving to Tampa 1 or 2 a month for the nightlife in order to enjoy the other trappings of being in Spring Hill. But all of that to say is that if nightlife is important to you, Spring Hill is probably not going to be top of your list of considerations. And what are some of the most popular activities in Spring Hill? Well, like I already mentioned, we're about 15 minutes from the Gulf of Mexico. So definitely boating, kayaking on the Weeki Wachee River. There's the Weeki Wachee Springs State Park, where there's live mermaid shows. So definitely a lot of water-based activities around here. Golf is very big. And then also you have other stuff like state parks. So if you're into nature walks, if you're into camping, there's fishing in there, you can ride your bikes, that's also a big consideration as well. And then one of the other favorite pastimes is complaining about the overdevelopment locally. I'm just joking, but not really. So if you are considering moving to Spring Hill, Florida, just be aware that that's the kind of environment that you're going to be moving into, and know if that's going to be a match for you or not. And then next up, I think it's important to consider the population density, because depending on where you're moving from, you might be moving to a bigger town slash city, or you might be moving to a much smaller one. So let's take a look at the population density of Spring Hill, Florida, as we stand here today. Now, the population is currently about 116,116, and that's continuing to grow. There's a lot of inward migration to Spring Hill over the last 10 years. I've been here for about 20 years, and I've definitely seen an increase in that. And it seems like as you drive around at the moment, there's new home developments popping up on every corner to support that. But if you're thinking that that sounds like traffic might be an issue, then you'd be right to a fair degree as well. The traffic has definitely gotten considerably worse over the 20 years that I've been here. It's very, very noticeable moving from a sleepy small town into kind of an emerging suburb of Tampa, where the infrastructure seems to be just a half a step behind the rest of the development. So there's a lot of these new store strip malls going up and new home developments. And it seems like the roads don't quite catch up for a couple of years after, and so traffic can be an issue in a number of areas. And another problem that contributes to that is that the mass transit system around here is very, very thin on the ground, again, pretty much non-existent for the most part. So for example, if I wanted to get from my house in downtown Brooksville to my office right in the heart of Spring Hill, it's going to be about 2 hours and 16 minutes on the bus routes, whereas it's about a 21-minute drive in the car. So it kind of gives you an idea as to how difficult it is to get around. Certainly if you're going to need to rely on transit, then Spring Hill might not be a consideration for you either. But it's also worth pointing out that the traffic is going to be nowhere near on a level somewhere like Wesley Chapel, which I've been driving down 75 towards Tampa to go to the restaurants in the evening, and the traffic's coming back out of Tampa the other way. And the off-ramp at 56 or 54 is backed up for a mile plus. And it's certainly nowhere near as bad as Tampa either, which is kind of notorious locally for its traffic, or Orlando, which, my God, is quite frankly one of the worst areas in Florida for traffic. So it all depends on what you're used to. And if you've been in Spring Hill for a while, it probably seems like the traffic is really, really bad for you at the moment compared to what it's been like growing up or over the last few years. But if you're coming from another larger city or town, it may be completely what you're used to or not as bad as what you're used to. So consider all of the factors here and decide whether that's something you can handle or not. Now, if you think that you're on board with the culture, let's talk a little bit about the climate in Spring Hill, Florida. Now, you probably already know that Florida's famous for two things. One of them is the humidity in the summer, and the other one is the hurricanes. So let's just touch on both of those briefly. In the summer, Spring Hill is going to see highs of 92, lows of 73, but the humidity is at 100%, and it feels, I mean, honestly, just unbearable at some points. Moving here from the UK, where we certainly don't have anything like that, and if it hits 80 degrees, everybody's calling in sick to work and going to the beach. It was a real culture shock getting into Florida and having to live through those long, hot summers. And even 20 years on, I'm still not sure that I'm really used to it. But like I say in some of my other videos, if you're coming from up north where you're dealing with snow for 3 or 4 months of the year, the humidity is probably going to be nothing to you. I was talking to a guy from Chicago last night who called off the YouTube channel, and he's like, man, I will deal with like 97 degrees heat and go out and play golf or go fishing and be able to take advantage of the weather there, than spend 4 months inside my house where it's 10 degrees or below. And I get that, but I do want to bring a balanced argument to this and let you know that the humidity is really, really grim. And then the other thing is with the summer months, because of that humidity building throughout the day, is we see a lot of rain in the afternoons. And so July, August is going to bring about 21 days on average a month of rain. So it's definitely wet during the summer as well. And then that kind of leads into the second part. There's not a single Floridian, I don't think, who gets on slightly heightened alert throughout the hurricane season, especially after the two brutal ones that we went through at the back end of 2024. Which was certainly the worst that I've seen in the 20 years that I've been here. I'll tell you that for the most part, leading up to that, the hurricanes have been really nothing to write home about. There's been a couple of situations where we thought we were going to get a really, really close call. We've gone out, boarded up the house, or left town for the weekend and got sandbags, only to realize that it dove off at the last minute. And that's really been the prevailing trend in Spring Hill, is that it's never really gone directly at us. We've always seemed to avoid it. And we actually avoided, for the most part, Milton and Helene at the end of last year. The problem is that the coastal areas in particular caught the effects of it. And we weren't alone. It was everywhere from Sarasota up through Citrus County, where the coastal areas just suffered catastrophic flooding back to back. But it's been a real eye-opener for us that we're not immune to it in this part of Florida, and it's going to happen again one day. So definitely be aware of the hurricanes. It's something that we do live through every single year, even if we're not directly affected by them. The scare is there. and it's definitely something you should consider whether you can handle when you're moving to Florida in general. However, what I want to do now is bring to the forefront something that's maybe a little less talked about in Florida as far as the climate and the weather goes, and that is the beautiful mild winters. Now let's face it, the snowbirds already know this, that's why they come down for the winter months from up north, but we just come off the back of a gorgeous January and February in 2025 here, where it was beautifully mild, and we're actually at the beginning of March as I film this, and I'm driving into the office this morning at 8:30 and it's 59 degrees outside. It's just absolutely spectacular weather. The January and February, you're typically going to see highs of 69 degrees, lows of 47, and there's going to be probably a couple of cold snaps and hard frosts in there somewhere. We get those pretty much every year, but for the most part, it's just really, really beautiful weather. And quite frankly, I enjoy it when it's a little bit colder. It reminds me of home back in England a little bit. I don't mind getting the sport coat on and getting a jacket on a couple of days a year. It's really amusing, quite frankly, to watch the Floridians walk around with gloves and bobble hats and scarves on when it's not really that cold outside. But certainly everybody here enjoys the winters. The problem is they just don't tend to last for long enough. Now, of course, an important consideration if you're looking to move to Spring Hill, Florida is going to be the type of real estate that's available here and how affordable is it. And luckily I'm a real estate expert, so I can help you on that front as well. Now, the great thing about Spring Hill, Florida, as you will already know if you've watched any of my videos, is the large variety of homes, both in types of homes and then the price points that they're at. So think gated communities, golf course communities, there's waterfront properties, there's some acreage around here, there's 55+ neighborhoods, there's mobile manufactured homes, and there's homes ranging from, I just saw a brand new construction at $240,000 the other day, all the way well up over $1 or $2 million, and everything in between. Now, Spring Hill is growing pretty quickly at the moment, and like I mentioned earlier in the video, there's a lot of new construction going on, and that gives opportunities for buyers, one, because they're offering great incentives as far as the rate buy downs and the closing cost concessions go, but it also opens up a whole bunch more choice for people, although the inventory has been going up quite rapidly on the resales as well. So definitely it's not the type of market it was 4 years ago where people were struggling to find homes. If you know what you're looking for and it's something that's kind of broadly available at least, you're not going to have too much trouble finding a property in Spring Hill that's going to suit your needs. Now, speaking broadly, the average median home sale price in Spring Hill, Florida is $315,000, 315. And so it's about 13% below the national average and relatively inexpensive for most of the Tampa Bay area. Certainly it's much lower than Tampa, Wesley Chapel, West Chase, Lutz, Land O'Lakes, and some of those surrounding suburbs. And typically the trend you find is the further north you go from Tampa, the less the median sales price is going to be and the more bang for buck you get. But just to give you a kind of very broad overview, if you're looking for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home in a non-gated, non-HOA community in the heart of Spring Hill, you're probably going to be able to find that for somewhere around $270,000. And stepping up to a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in a generic gated community is maybe going to set you back around $350,000. And if you move into one of the more prestigious communities where you're looking at maybe a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,500 square foot home with a pool, you're going to expect to pay somewhere around $450,000 to $500,000 on something like that. And again, that's just a broad overview. There's plenty of videos I've made out there, including the one about the best places to live in Spring Hill, where I break this down a little bit more. I'll put the link in the comments below. But that's a broad overview of the real estate market locally. Hi guys, Ross Hardy from the Hardy team at Remax. And if you're getting value from this video, I'd like you to do a couple of things. Comment below, let me know what you think about it. Give me any suggestions or feedback that you have. I always respond to the comments personally. Please be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notifications bell. That way you can be kept up to date with all of the videos I make like this about the things you need to know, the cost of living and pros and cons of certain areas, as well as community tours, talking about the best new construction and doing home tours as well. And whether you're 9 days or 99 days away from moving to Spring Hill, Brooksville, Hernando Beach, Wesley Chapel, or anywhere in the North Tampa Bay area, there's no bad time to reach out and ask questions of me and my team. Like I said, we hear from people like you every single week who have questions or want to know which areas might be a good fit for them, or set up a home tour when they come into town, and we love helping folks like you. Anyway, you can reach us at the contact information below, set up a call, text, email, Zoom, whatever you want to do. Basically, there's no bad time, no stupid questions. For now, let's get back to the video. Okay, in addition to the cost of buying a home, you're gonna wanna know about the general cost of living as well. Like how far does your dollar stretch when you bring that home in your paycheck? And according to PayScale, the cost of general living in Spring Hill, Florida is about 9% below the national average. So pretty strong on that front. Now, the property taxes are relatively low compared to especially most other areas in Tampa Bay, Florida, although be aware if you have a CDD in your community, they're gonna be higher. Homeowners insurance costs may be a little bit higher than what you're used to, but of course, remember as well, there's no state income tax. So take all of those factors into the equation when considering what it might be like compared to where you are now. And another great comparison to do before you move to an area is do the cost of living compared to your salary. And of course, a great way to do this is use one of the resources online and see what the comparable pay is in Spring Hill for your line of work compared to where you're at now. Now, ZipRecruiter is a great way to do this, but I broke down a couple of examples for you I want to read off here. Now, the first one is if you're in Spring Hill and you're a primary care physician, your average salary is going to be about $184,000. So again, compare that to where you're at relatively. If you're an RN, it's going to be about $71,000. And if you're a teacher, which is one of the most valuable yet underpaid professions out there, you're going to be looking at about $40,000. And again, these are all according to ZipRecruiter. So go online and use those resources, compare your salary where you're at compared to Spring Hill, Florida, and see how those stack up. Now, I will tell you that although the jobs market is growing in Spring Hill, Florida, it's certainly not going to be anything comparable to, say, Wesley Chapel again, or some of the suburbs just north of Tampa, or Tampa itself. Although, like I said, with that 589 toll road going south to Tampa, pretty much all of that is within an easy commute. And even with the tolls and the gas, I would be willing to bet that the increased salary that you would get from one of these areas will more than offset the cost of the extra gas and the tolls that you would pay going to and from the job. Now again, there's a bunch of good resources online to see what the jobs are available in Spring Hill. I won't go into that here, but be sure to go online and do your research thoroughly. Now, if you have kids, like I do, then schools are going to be a consideration for you as well. So let's talk a little bit about the schools in Spring Hill within the scope of what I'm able to as a real estate professional. Now, overall, I will say the schools in Spring Hill are pretty average, so not spectacular, not terrible, but there are certainly some standouts. So Chocochatty Elementary and then the Challenger K-8 school are both exceptional schools. We've had kids go through both of those schools and they're ranked amongst some of the highest in Florida, let alone some of the highest locally as far as their grade scores go. But for the most part, the public schools are typically B or C schools. They're certainly not on a par with somewhere like Land O'Lakes or Wesley Chapel or Odessa, Trinity, and those areas. But like I said, the cost of living is considerably less as well. And there are great private school options locally in Spring Hill. So again, a number of great resources online, like niche, great schools. So go online, do your research. If you know people locally, talk to them about their experience, and then you can make an intelligent decision for yourself. Now, like I said, we've had no issues with the schools locally. We've loved all the schools the kids have gone through, but just because that's our experience doesn't mean that's everybody's experience, and it doesn't mean it has to be yours either. And then finally, if you're into homeschooling, the homeschooling culture in Spring Hill is pretty robust. There's a number of different meetup groups that handle stuff like that, and a lot of the parents kind of chip in together to help each other out as far as that goes. So you shouldn't be left on your own if homeschooling is your thing in the Spring Hill area either. Okay, so a couple of things I want to talk about based on my experience of living in Spring Hill for 15 years and some of the changes I've seen over the course of that time. Now, first of all, like I said, I've loved living in Spring Hill. A lot of people complain about it, but I think a lot of people complain about wherever they live. It seems like it's part and parcel of being a resident of somewhere. I will tell you that the customers I deal with, at least, have always pretty much by and large loved living here too. It's because of the things I mentioned, the low cost of living, the low housing prices, but still being very, very close to Tampa and being right on the door for water activities. And certainly in the 20 years I've been here, I've seen a large increase in the number of things to do as well. So for kids 10, 15 years ago, it was really, really short on options. And now we have all sorts of additional things for them to do, like the trampoline park, like batting cages, putt-putt courses, go-karts, and kind of stuff like that. And then, like I said, Wesley Chapel, Odessa, Trinity, Land O'Lakes, and Tampa are really not that far. So there's a rock climbing place that we go to, which is only about a 30-minute drive from our house in Brooksville. So only about a 25-minute drive from Spring Hill. Everything's pretty much on the doorstep and the number of options have considerably increased. Take into account what I've said, do your own research, maybe even pay it a visit. We'd be happy to take you around and show you some of the highlights, and then consider whether it's the right place for you or not. So guys, as you can see, there's a number of things you need to consider when working out if Spring Hill, Florida is a place that you want to live in or move to or not. and I hope you found this video useful. Be sure to leave a comment below to snag our list of preferred homes in the area. Just let us know specifically what you might be looking for and we can send that over to you. And if you still don't have enough information, you'd like a little bit more, be sure to watch our map tour of Spring Hill. Again, I'll link that in the comments down below, or watch our video about the places you should live, or our video tour of Spring Hill. We try and give everybody as immersive an experience of what it's like to live here as possible. And of course, one final plug for me and my real estate team. If you want to take a tour or you're ready to make the move, be sure to reach out to us. We're local real estate experts. I've been selling homes here for 20 years and we help over 200 families a year. Until next time, guys, thanks for watching. I'm Ross Hardy from the Hardy team. It's time to love where you live.